This is a great opportunity to be like, hey, yes, I do offer good value. Here's what I'm sending you. If you want it, stay in. And those people that stay in, those are the people who are going to become your super fans if they aren't already.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, onto the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hello, bosses. This is Ella here from Author Like a Boss, and today we are talking about the super sexy topic of the GDPR. Now, you may have heard about this roaming around on the chat boards and all kinds of chat boards, whatever, just you know what I mean. You may have heard about the GDPR and been wondering, like, okay, what do I have to do with that? You may have been getting emails from your email service person or company being like, okay, it's coming into effect. And they're like, but I don't understand this. So today we are talking about the GDPR and how it pertains to you as an author. So what is the GDPR? The GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. It is a new set of guidelines that dictate how individuals and companies may acquire, utilize, store, and delete the personal data of the citizens of the European Union. It goes into effect on May 25th, but I think you may as well just get your stuff sorted out now because that's not that far. And it feels good to get stuff done in advance and not be worrying about it and having it hang over you. Before I get too far, I just want to remind you that this podcast and this episode is for informational purposes and is not actually meant for legal advice. If you have any more detailed questions, go ahead and contact your lawyer, but we'll still go over some really good information here to give you kind of an overview. So as an author, where the GDPR most likely pertains to you is if you have a newsletter and subscribers. So that's where you'll need to make sure that you are in compliance. And this is because you'll probably have people on your newsletter in Europe. Like if anybody from Europe subscribes or has subscribed to your newsletter or your list, you're going to want to make sure that you're in compliance. So let's talk about the most important user rights of the GDPR that apply to email marketing. So the first right is the right to be forgotten. Now, the right to be forgotten gives somebody the power to ask a company to delete all of the data that is associated with that person. Now, for you as a person, you are in this case counted as a company because you're marketing to them. So it requires you to provide more than just an unsubscribe button. So the unsubscribe button takes them off your list, or it keeps them from receiving emails, but it doesn't delete the information. You still have know that that person was on your list and is now not anymore. So what you have to do is if they request it, you have to not only remove them from your list, but delete everything associated with them from your database. So the second most important right is the right of access. And this allows your subscribers to ask exactly how you are using their data and for what purposes. So if a request is made, you'll need to provide a personal data report at no cost to them. And so this is like, okay, what have I been doing with your data? Well, basically, I've just been emailing this to you. Some of these rights are for larger companies like Facebook and Google. Like, how have you been using my data? Are you selling it? Are you doing stuff with it? So if you've been doing anything like that, you need to let them know. But most authors are usually just, we're using the data to email you email newsletters, okay? We're not using it for anything else usually than just that kind of basic thing. The third right is breach notification. So it is mandatory under the GDPR. So that means if you have a breach of information somehow, someone, gets into your info and takes it from you somehow and starts using it, you have 72 hours from when you become aware to notify everybody. Again, this is most likely for the big companies, but just in case that ever happens to you, you want to know what you need to do in advance. The final thing is that you need to have the right of portability. And what that does is it lets people request their data, which means you would need to download a file of all their data in a commonly used and readable machine format. so that they can get it. So it's like an Excel spreadsheet. You can't give them their data in like some strange software, which you guys, none of us have to worry about that most likely. But just wanted to make sure that you know what you would be required to do as someone who is using email marketing. Now, the thing that is like, that might sound like a lot. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make these reports? Like, whoa, this sounds big. This sounds heavy. Not to worry. Most email marketing services like MailChimp, Aweber, and all those kind of MailerLite, whatever, they are putting stuff together to make this super easy because they don't want to lose your business. They want you to stay with them, and they don't want to make things harder for you because otherwise you'll jump to someplace else that makes it easier. So they are putting stuff together so it's easy to come up with those reports. It's easy to have all that stuff accessible when you need it. If it's not already available, they're making it because, again, they are also having to be in compliance. Yay! Okay. The overall concept that you really, really, really need to get about the GDPR is that consent is a big deal. Okay, so this means if you're using email for marketing purposes, you need to obtain consent, and it needs to be active and explicit. Okay, so let's go into it a little bit. So active consent means your subscribers need to initiate the consent. So sometimes you guys may have seen this, and I haven't seen that many authors doing this, but you've probably seen it before. You can no longer include those little checks within the checkbox and make someone remove it. Let's say you're filling out something and they're like you're at Home Depot or what have you, and you're buying something, and at the end it's like, you also agree to receive newsletters and coupons and discounts, and it's already checked, and you have to uncheck it. That's no good anymore for people in Europe. They have to actually leave it unchecked, and you have to check to give consent. So that's what the active means. Explicit consent means that you need to clearly communicate exactly what the user is agreeing to and what the data is being collected for. So for you guys, that means you need to say, we'll get into this a little bit, but that means people need to know that when they give you their name and email address, they are using it. They are giving it to you for the purposes of signing up and subscribing to your newsletter. And what you're going to do with that is send them a newsletter. Okay. You're not going to go sell it. You're not going to go, sell their information somewhere or use it in some other fashion. You're just going to send them a newsletter. But they know it before they sign up. That's the part that's the consent and explicit. Basically, you want to be as transparent as possible with your consent forms. So a really, really good way to do this is to utilize the double opt-in that a lot of those email marketing softwares let you use. The double opt-in is where people give you their name and email for whatever freebie or something that you give them. And then MailChimp sends them another email that says, "Are you sure?" And they have to say, "Yes, I am sure." And that double opt-in provides you a paper trail of the transaction, which is good for you because the burden of proof, if someone were to come back to you and say, "But I never agreed to that," that double opt-in would give you the proof. And the burden of proof is on you, in this case, to prove that the individual consented to your terms and to provide them with that backup. You guys have the burden of proof, not the person who subscribed. I recommend just doing the double opt-in. Okay, moving on to some more sexy topics. I know this is not sexy at all, but I really want to make sure that you guys have everything you need to make sure that you are legal and complying with new regulations that are happening in Europe. Just remember, as you're going through all this, that it means that you are a real international author. These kind of problems you only have to deal with when you're selling things and marketing to people internationally. And just think of it that way, how sexy that is. You're like, yeah, I do have to worry about this because there's people in Australia buying my book. There's people in, Australia is not in Europe, but you know what I mean. There's people in, Paris buying my book. I have to worry about this. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay. If you have people that are currently on your list that live in Europe and are part of this, citizens of the European Union, you do have to make sure that they have given consent. So you have to revalidate all of them because you want to have that record. You want to protect yourself. The easiest way to do that is to send an email so that they explicitly choose to stay on your list or to unsubscribe. So the email can be like, hey, I want to make sure that we're giving really, really good value and that you're getting the things that you want to get, expect to get, because you want to give value to people in your newsletter anyways. Like, you want them to stay on your list because they're like, well, I wouldn't take off this list. There's giveaways here. There's all kinds of good stuff. She sends me stuff about like sales and other books that are free that I really always wanted. You want to give awesome value to people so that they don't want to leave. And then you send this email out saying, hey, I just want to double check that you really want to be here. Remember, this is the kind of value that I get. These are some of the things I'm planning on sending in the future. If you want to stay on, please subscribe and have them click some kind of button that allows them to subscribe and maybe puts them on a special list so that you don't have to remember later, like, who is on this? I don't know. You can look into the details of that. But you need to have them also be able to unsubscribe with a click if they don't want to be on there. And those people should need to be off your list and like all of their information gone and deleted so that you have no like backup of them somewhere. You send that email out, and once you've done that and people have responded, you are good to go. Okay. I'm going to make a sample GDPR revalidate your subscribers email for this episode. So go to the show notes for this episode to see and get access to the sample email that you can send people. And the show notes will be at authorlikeaboss.com, episode 7. Okay. And I'll have that email. It's just a sample, something that you can look at and be like, oh, okay, that's how we can do it. Okay. It's, again, not legal advice. If you have legal questions, go to your lawyer, but it's just informational. Okay, so now we're getting into the thing of how do you make sure that you're protected and that you're following and complying with the GDPR with people who are coming onto your list in the future. When you're adding people to your list, there's a number of different ways we do it. So let's just start going through them. So a lot of people add people to their list, like grow their subscribers by doing giveaways. And this is still totally fine. The only thing is that you need to make sure to be really explicit. And that's not always, people don't always practice this really explicit language when they're doing a giveaway. Sometimes people can be a little bit shadowy about it. So when you do a giveaway, you say, by participating in this giveaway, you agree to subscribe to this newsletter. And then to double protect yourself, do the double opt-in. So they entered the giveaway. Before they've even entered, they've agreed to subscribe to the newsletter. And then once they've entered the giveaway, or once they've put in that first information, name and email, they have to then double opt in and say, yes, I do subscribe. And that way you know that you're protected and complying with the giveaways because they have had to actively participate and you have been explicit in what the terms are. The other way that people add people to their newsletter is with opt-ins or freebies on your website, right? So you're like, hey, get a free novella on my website, and you use that to get an email address so you can send them stuff in the future about future books. The key, again, is for the consent to be active and explicit. So when you say, hey, you're agreeing to a free novella, you have to say now you want to get the free novella and you agree to receive my newsletter. And you can say where I send out tons of cool stuff, but make it really explicit. And then for that active piece, have the double opt-in. Another way that authors get people on their list is by putting a little invitation to their newsletter at the end of the book. So once people have purchased your book or on Kindle Unlimited and they've read through the whole thing, and at the end is an invitation to join a newsletter. Again, you'll want to be explicit saying, come join my newsletter. By clicking this link and signing up, you're going to make sure that you're subscribed to my newsletter and have the double opt-in. One thing I want to caution against, sometimes you might find yourself in the situation where you're personally inviting someone to join your newsletter. Like it might be in a conversation where you're chatting back and forth on Facebook, or like somebody might be really interested in your book in person where you're like, oh, I'm really curious about your book. You're like, yeah, let me add you to my newsletter. At this point, when you say, let me add you to the newsletter, what I recommend is sending them a link to a form that they fill out and rather than you doing it on the back end. So even if you know them personally and you know their email address, if they want to be on your newsletter, send them the form. They can fill that out. And then they have the double opt-in and you have the paper trail. What you do not want to do is add people to your list without written permission, even if you know them personally. Without written permission, that doesn't mean like they have to handwrite you a letter. It just means that you want to have a record somewhere that's not just a verbal confirmation from you to them that nobody is witnessed or anything like that. You want there to be a record. You also, and I don't know how much this comes up with authors, but you do not want to, let's say you go to trade shows or you go to conventions and people are handing out business cards all over the place. I don't know as much as this happens with authors, but I think it does to some extent if you're going to conventions and stuff and you're exchanging emails. Don't just add them to your email list. Like it used to be, and I know because I had jobs as admin assistants where my boss would come back with a stack of business cards and be like, add these to our database. And that was fun. That was really fun. But that's a no-no now, especially if any of those people are from Europe. Another way to do this is to get an iPad or some other kind of device and have it with you at the show, at the convention, and allow people to just sign up to your newsletter there on the iPad. So instead of trading business cards or getting their business card, be like, hey, yeah, great. You want to find out more? Here, sign up to my newsletter. And they can just type it in right there on your iPad or other device that you have. Okay. That way, again, the double opt-in, the active, the permission, everything's right there. Okay. So we've gone through a lot of really fun topics. I'm feeling like I need to take a little dance break. Dance break. Dance break. Ooh. Okay. Now, this is the fun topic for me. And it's still, maybe not fun for everybody, but now we're kind of getting into why the GDPR is good for you. And the reason it's good is because it's good marketing anyway. And you guys know I like to talk about marketing. That's why I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on from the legalese and go to the fun part. Marketing. Woo! Okay, so GDPR is good marketing because it essentially follows the golden rule. Like you want to be treated the way, treat other people the way you want to be treated, basically. So none of us likes getting emails from people where we're like, well, how did this person get my email? How did this company get my email? Why am I getting this email again? None of us likes that. And now in Europe, you're not going to have that anymore. And as marketing people, you get to make sure that you are not like that anymore. You're like, hey, I want everybody to know exactly where this newsletter came from. I want them to be on my list. And that's the second point. So beyond the golden rule, which I think is a good one to stick to be like, yeah, that's a good life rule. That's why it's called the golden rule. The other thing that it's good for you is that the people who are on your list will really want to be there. The people that are subscribed to your newsletter are going to be your super fans. And this is really, really great because having a smaller amount of super fans versus a bigger amount of people who are like, I could take it or leave it. If you had 1,000 people who were like, I open almost every single newsletter from this person because I know it is good stuff and I love her, versus 10,000 people who are like, sometimes I open it, sometimes I don't. Not really. I could care. I just signed up for this for a giveaway. Those 1,000 people who open every email and who buy every book are the ones that you really, really want to be there. So with the GDPR and this implementation, you have a great opportunity to reiterate the value that you offer to the people on your newsletter and who are subscribed and receiving newsletters for you. This is a great opportunity to be like, hey, yes, I do offer good value. Here's what I'm sending you. If you want it, stay in. And those people that stay in, those are the people who are going to become your super fans if they aren't already. The other thing that this opens up a really amazing opportunity for you is kind of like to do market research. So you can reach out to your email audience and be like, hey, I wanted to make sure that you were really happy on my list, that you're happy receiving my newsletter. What do you want more of and what do you want less of? Like if we're going to this point where you have this deliberate unsubscribe, you can ask them, hey, what are the favorite emails that I send you? And do that market research. And that's good for so many reasons because you can send the people who are currently on your list more of what they love. And chances are new people who join your list from other giveaways that you do legally, other people that join your list are going most likely to be similar to the people who are already on it. And you're going to give them great value from the get-go. So they won't want to leave as soon as the giveaway is over. Okay, that's one really awesome opportunity that this GDPR opens up. If you take it, right? If you take it. The other thing that's good about it is, I don't know if you guys know this, especially for people who are just starting, but keeping a newsletter and a large list can be kind of expensive. Okay, so it can cost hundreds of dollars to send out your newsletter and keep that list of thousands of people. Like it gets expensive. And so I've actually interviewed a few authors. You guys, if you listen to Debbie Herbert, I believe she's just the episode previous, episode 6. She recently told me like she cut her list from I think 20,000 to 10,000. Like she was just like, these people aren't on here because she didn't want to pay the hundreds and hundreds of dollars for people who were not actively participating in her newsletters. This is a great opportunity to do that. You're like, hey, you know what? These people don't want to be in here and I don't want to pay for them to be in here. So it's a win-win. The other thing and the final thing that I think this really opens up an opportunity for you is if you aren't already, which you guys know I'm a huge proponent of this, is to be authentic and build trust and integrity and have integrity with your audience. You're going to be there. You're going to give everybody this opportunity to be like, hey, yes, I'm sending you a newsletter. Yes, there's times that I'm going to offer for you to buy something, but mostly I really just want to give you amazing value. And the people who are like, yeah, I'm down for that, they get to be there and they will trust you even more because you've been so upfront and authentic about what your intentions are. And they get the opportunity to say, yeah, I like that. I like your newsletter. I'll stay. And the people who are not interested in purchasing from you in the future, they'll unsubscribe. And guess what? I know sometimes it can really hurt when people unsubscribe and you're like, but wait, your ego and your confidence and you're like, but wait, don't you want to stay? It can hurt. It can hurt when you look at people unsubscribing, but really what you need to look at is, do you want to pay money and put time and energy and effort into creating content for people who in the end don't want to be there? Like that feels so yucky. I don't know. It feels like, this happens to me pretty often. I don't know, where I try to make a joke and trying to make people laugh. I'm like, come on, you guys, this is a great joke. And they just are not in the mood. It just like goes out and it feels like it just dies like right as soon as it comes out of my, all my energy just like dissipates instantly. And I'm like, oh, this is what that's like when you're sending and creating content out and putting all this time and energy and effort into giving value. And then the people there aren't responding. You don't have to have that anymore because the GDPR is making it so much easier for you to just let that go and just only have to create content for the people who really want to be there. And you get to be really authentic and it doesn't feel underhanded at all. You're not like doing giveaways and like not really telling people that you're going to start emailing them. Nope. The people that are there want to be there. The people who are not there don't want to be there. And you can just let it go. It's very freeing once you get to that point, and it can be hard, but it's very freeing. So I want to take this moment to just let you know we will be talking about newsletters and what to put in them in the future. If you have anything in particular on this topic or around newsletters or around being authentic or around getting that mindset where you can just let people be there or not be there, if you have anything that you'd really like me to talk about, please let me know by leaving a review. If you liked it, leave a review and then, put a question in there like, hey, can you cover XYZ? And I will look at it. I will read the reviews and see if I can give you guys help with what you need the most. Again, this episode is for informational purposes and not meant for legal advice. But if you want to go get that sample email of what people might send to your email list to confirm that they want to be there, and I'm going to take some screenshots of people who are using that consent with the active and explicit. I'm going to do some screenshots of people who are doing it well, and I'll have those also in the show notes. And the show notes will be at authorlikeaboss.com/episode 7. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know this is not the most exciting episode, but I think it's really good info, and I think you guys can have a lot of maybe not fun, or maybe, but it can be really useful and be to your benefit to comply with the GDPR beyond just because you want to be, not breaking the law. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Hugs and happy authoring.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, onto the show with your host, Ella Barnard.